Hello, my name is Lance Ash, and I'd like to talk a little bit about how I became an atheist. I was raised in a Southern Baptist environment. The church that I attended as a child was a Southern Baptist church, but not particularly politically active, like a lot of churches today are, or like a lot of the churches that my contemporaries went to. Traditional values, that sort of thing. I stopped going to church, I guess around the time I was 14 or 15, maybe more like 15, 16. And I didn't stop going because I had doubts about theism or Christianity or any of that. I just got bored with it and I couldn't stand sitting there in the church. Anyway, I don't know why my parents put up with me not going, but they did. Anyway, but I remained a believer up until, I should back up a second. In 4th grade, my parents moved my sister and me from public school to a private Christian school whose emphasis was very right-wing conservative Republican. This was a school that actively encouraged the children to adopt Republican political values and actively encouraged children to go home and tell their parents to vote Republican. And I was fine with all that. That school, more than the church, influenced me to become right-wing, Republican, conservative, all this stuff. Anyway, when I was 20, I lived in I had moved out of the house, moved out of my parents' house, and moved into a duplex. And one day, I was talking to the neighbor. And we were just talking generally. And in the middle of the conversation, I don't really know what we were talking about, but in the middle of the conversation, she said, "And of course you know there's no God." And I had never really thought about it before. And I guess the time was right, because I just said, "Yeah, you're right, yeah." And at that moment, I became an atheist. And the funny thing is, about a month or two after that, I was reading Of Human Bondage by Somerset Maugham. And there's a scene in that book where the main character becomes an atheist. And immediately after becoming an atheist, a revelation comes through his brain that nothing has changed, meaning he's the same person. And when I read that, I realized it was the same thing with me, because right after becoming an atheist, I realized that, well, first of all, when I became an atheist, it was such a relief, because there was no fear of hell anymore. There was no fear of heaven, because I was just as scared of heaven, really. And there was no more magic man in the sky watching me go to the bathroom or masturbate or whatever. I felt free, liberated. But fundamentally, I was the same person, and the world was the same. It was a strange feeling. But because people use the phrase deconversion, I don't really care for that term, but because my so-called deconversion was sort of an intuitive thing and not rationally based, it wasn't. There was no logical argument leading up to it that convinced me there was no God. My political beliefs stayed the same. All my cultural biases stayed the same. I still was a conservative. I still was right-wing leaning. And after I got married when I was 25, I read the book The Atheism, the Case Against God by George Smith. And after I read that book, that put my atheism on a rational footing. And for some reason after that, all of my conservative beliefs fell away. My opposition to abortion, my being pro-death penalty, my being pro-militaristic American foreign policy, all that fell away. And opposition to gay rights, all that disappeared. So you can draw whatever conclusions from that you like, but I think that's about all I have to say about that particular subject. There's some attendant details that I might get into on a different installment of this video series. So I think that's about it. All right, thank you for listening. Bye.